Today we're making Bicol Express. Spicy and creamy and packed with umami. What's not to love? Traditionally made with pork belly. What if it was paired with a thick-cut, juicy pork chop steak? I'm going to go over some challenges and show you a few techniques on how to cook a perfect pork chop, as well as tips to build the sauce so it's not one-dimensional but full of depth and complexity. They're simple steps, but trust me when I say they make a huge difference in building a flavorful final dish. Welcome to Ed's Cookery. Let's jump in. An issue with pork chop is they can turn out dry, gray, and bland when overcooked. But there are steps you can take to prevent this and achieve a juicy and flavorful pork chop with a beautiful crust. The answer? One technique you can use is dry brining. Take a pinch of kosher salt and generously salt both sides. Dry brine is a fancy term for sprinkling of salt and letting it sit in the fridge overnight. This will allow the salt to penetrate deeper and season your chop thoroughly. But that's not all. This step also dries the surface, which means it's easier to get a golden brown crust when we sear. Using a wire rack also helps by increasing airflow around the pork chop. Moisture is the enemy of browning. The drier the surface, more browning can occur. And more browning means more flavor. Therefore, taking the time to complete these easy steps makes such a difference in flavor and texture in the final dish. Before searing the pork chop, prepare the other ingredients in advance. Sliced shallot and ginger, green onions separated, sliced chili and garlic, shrimp paste and coconut milk, butter, garlic, shallots, and green chili. This will help us stay organized, and putting together the Bicol Express sauce, a breeze. Now we're ready to sear. Here's a pork chop I dry brined the night before. Preheat the pan to medium and add a teaspoon of oil. Once the oil lightly smokes, lay down the pork chop. Press down to ensure full contact with the pan. You'll want to hear a sizzle. The challenge with searing is keeping the pork juicy while getting a deep brown crust. Our dry brine helps by giving us a drier surface, which encourages browning. Flip every minute to evenly sear each side. We're going to keep a close eye on the internal temperature with an instant read thermometer. If you don't have one, I suggest purchasing one. It will take the guesswork out of cooking. As the pork chop approaches 115 to 120 Fahrenheit, we want to continue to build depth of flavor. But how do we do that? Butter, baby. Add a knob of butter to the pan, and once foaming, add garlic and shallots. Basting with butter, garlic, and shallots, add a rich aromatic flavor to the pork. But that's not all. It also keeps the surface moist as it rests, so every bite is flavorful and juicy. Therefore, basting doesn't just add flavor, it prevents the meat from drying out. At this point, you want to keep a close eye on the internal temperature. For a juicy pork chop, remove it when it hits 130 degrees Fahrenheit. While the pork chop is resting, it will continue to carry over cook. You can expect the internal temperature to raise upwards to 5 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit even after you take it off the heat. Therefore, a good sear isn't just about high heat, it's about knowing when to stop. We seared, we basted, but here's the next problem. Cutting into a hot pork chop too soon can cause it to lose its juices, leaving it dry. The solution? Continue to let it rest for 5 to 10 minutes. Resting the pork chop gives the juices time to settle back into the chop instead of spilling out onto the plate. Resting is a crucial step in the cooking process in achieving a juicy pork chop steak. Don't skip it. While the pork chop rests, it's time to start the sauce. On medium-low and in the same pan, bloom your aromatics until fragrant. One of the big mistakes is adding aromatics to the sauce without blooming them in oil first, leaving the sauce one-dimensional. Blooming your aromatics in oil lets them release their natural oils and deepen in flavor, creating a richer base for your dish than if you added them straight into the liquid. Add your shrimp paste and let it caramelize. The paste brings in a salty and distinct umami flavor. You may notice a fond developing and sticking to the pan. These brown bits are packed with flavor. But don't worry, there's a technique to clean out the pan while adding the fond into the sauce. It's called deglazing. Pour the coconut milk in. The coconut milk will pick up the flavorful fond while giving us a sweet and creamy richness that cuts through the bold saltiness, bringing balance to the dish. To take the sauce to the next level, we need to thicken it. But coconut milk can split if overheated, which leaves us with an undesirable mouthfeel, thin and oily. Therefore, to prevent this, we reduce the sauce at a gentle simmer. This allows the flavors to meld slowly, giving us a velvety and creamy consistency that's just right for coating the pork. But how do you know when it's the perfect consistency? Using a spatula, divide straight across, and if the shape holds for a few seconds, it's ready. If the shape won't hold, that means it's too watery. You can try again in 30 seconds. Add the green chili at the end for a crisp texture. And that's it. We're ready to plate. Spoon your spicy and creamy Bicol Express sauce onto the plate. Slice your pork chop into thick pieces and place on top of the sauce. Spoon sauce around the pork and glaze the bone and outer edges. But here's the issue, a dish this rich can feel heavy, so we need something fresh to balance it out. Therefore, we're adding green onions and red chili on top. The green onion gives a fresh crunch and the chili brings a little pop of heat and color. It's a small detail, but it makes the whole meal feel balanced. Each technique we used today really paid off, but remember, you can use these techniques learned today for other dishes too. Let's taste. The pork is tender, juicy, and flavorful, and visually it has a nice golden brown exterior. The sauce has that perfect blend of spice and aromatics, and texturally it has a creamy and velvety consistency. This is Pork Chop Bicol Express. Enjoy.